All right. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Linda Bing of Turning Point Leadership Group, and I'm so glad to see you all here today. You know, one of the things that occurred to us is this is still spring break for some people. Some of people are just coming back. Others are going out this week. So we're looking at numbers and thinking, the numbers look a little light, but then we figured out what it was. So I'm a firm believer in the people who are supposed to be here will be here. And so given that you're here, that's a good sign. Now, I do have to give you an apology as we get started. Our special guest, we don't think is going to be able to make it. She has not shown up yet. There's something going on, and she may join in. So I am going to be stepping in as the pitch hitter for her today. Glad that I am available to do so. And we'll try to get her back at another point if we can. But the way we had set this up, initially, she was going to make a presentation, and her name is LaTanya Flournoy. She was originally going to make a presentation. Then we decided instead of a presentation, we were going to do more like a fireside chat. We wanted to give more opportunity for you to ask questions and get your questions answered. So I am going to ask the questions, do my best to answer questions that you have, and we'll get some dialogue going. So I am inviting you to please, if you have a question or a comment, come off of mute and ask your question, make your comment, so that we're all benefiting from this conversation. So let me go ahead and share my screen so I can get us started right away. I had a conversation with, that's not the one we want, had a conversation with LaTanya Flournoy. And in our conversation, one of the things that she mentioned was she talked about the R in ERG. And as we talked about, I was like, wow, that's a great title. And it's something that I think we can all relate to, because as we are all involved in doing the work of employee resource groups, and I realize some people call them BRGs, CRGs, and a host of other things, we, for the sake of simplicity and a few other reasons, we're going to stick to saying ERG, but you know what I'm talking about if that's not what you call them. But anyway, as we talked about that, we talked about the fact that
She's always been small frame.
That resource is so important. And I see that she has joined us, and some of you need to mute. So I'm going to ask you to please make sure you're muted, please.
Oh my gosh.
Ashley, can you do a mute all? Somebody is not hearing us. So in just a moment, I will bring her on since I see that she has joined us. Let me find you. Where are you, LaTanya? Come off of mute. There she is. Yes, I had just shared with folks that we weren't sure if you were going to be able to join us. I'm so glad that you're here. So
I am so sorry. This time zone got me. I had 12 o'clock and meant to change it. So my apologies.
No
Bad
worries.
first impression.
I didn't even give away that secret. I knew that's probably what it was. And I didn't even give away that secret. I said, Ashley, she might be thinking it's 12 her time, but I was ready to punt regardless. So since you're here, let me let people know just who you are and how awesome you are. And the fact that this is someone who we just met not long ago, but I was so impressed by the conversation that I was like, I'm going to ask her if she would like to do one of our EnERGize webinars. So the she that I'm referring to is LaTanya Flournoy, and her pronouns are she, her, and hers. LaTanya is the Workforce Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. She has over 20 years of professional experience, including leadership in an employee resource group. So she's been where you are, and launching and managing ERGs company-wide for Fortune 100 and 500 organizations. She currently provides strategic leadership and oversight to the company-wide DE&I and ERG strategies. Ms. Flournoy has been an invited panelist to speak about DE&I specific topics and ERG governance and structure. She has also led enterprise-wide inclusion training and birthed an ERG mentoring program. She is very passionate about the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as the importance of an employee resource group to the companies they are a part of. So please join me in welcoming our special guest and our subject matter expert for the day, LaTanya Flournoy. So LaTanya, I explained to them that what we're going to do today is a fireside chat, sort of. We're going to put questions out there. You and I will dialogue back and forth, and I am beseeching them to please be participative. If they have questions, this is a great opportunity to get them answered. And again, we have someone with us who not only has been an ERG leader and can relate to what you're going through, but she now has the responsibility of leading people who are in your position. So this is a great opportunity for you to ask questions. Before we jump into the actual program, I need to share with you some information. So you know the title we're going to be talking about. Let's talk about the R in employee resource groups. And I need to remind you about how you can stay energized with Turning Point Leadership Group. You know that we have our EnERGize membership. This is an individual membership. We will be launching very soon a corporate membership. As individuals, if you know that your corporation is not pouring into you for the ERG leadership development, then it's something that we made affordable enough that you can do yourself. Sometimes you have to pay for your own development when you've got a goal in mind. And when you think about all of the skills and competencies that come out of ERG leadership, you're really not just developing yourself as an ERG leader, you're developing yourself as a leader in general. So rather than go and read all those bulleted items for you, you can take a look. You can also use the QR code, which will give you this information and take you to a page to sign up if that's something that you choose to do. As I said, we will be coming back to you probably at next month's with the corporate plan. And that's something that you can take back to your DEI leadership and see if they are willing to engage in that way. And then I want to share with you that we have a new event coming up. We're going to start doing DEI roundtables. Now, these are for chief diversity officers. And if there's no real chief diversity officer in your organization, whoever is leading the DEI initiative, sometimes that's someone in HR, sometimes there's a separate person and position for that. But if you are a chief diversity officer or would like your chief diversity officer to attend, you can reach out to Ashley, my awesome executive assistant, at the email address on the screen, and she'll get information to you. This is going to be an invitation-only event. It's taking place on Wednesday, April 26th from 11:30 to 12:30 Eastern. It is a virtual event. And the topic is, how can chief diversity officers drive business outcomes? This came to me really from someone who is a colleague and mentor and client of mine, Julius Pryor. Julius, some people have started to refer to Julius as the czar of diversity. Julius is so strategically minded, and he's been a chief diversity officer at a number of different Fortune 500 companies. And every time he goes somewhere else, he brings along Turning Point Leadership Group. He just took on a new position as a global head of diversity and health equity for Beijing, which is a Chinese-based organization. And it's getting him more involved in the health equity space. And I just had conversation, I think this might be week number 3 that he's been on the job. And while I'm busy congratulating him, he's telling me, get your people ready. As soon as I get my feet wet, we're moving forward. So Julius is going to be sort of the real facilitator. I'll be moderating that DEI roundtable, but he's the one who's going to be sharing information, throwing out questions, and getting the conversation started. Because with all of the things that have DEI under attack in society and in our corporate arenas today, we need to step up and show how chief diversity officers and everything that falls underneath them, including ERGs, can help to drive the business outcomes. Because of course, if it makes business, it makes sense. So if it makes sense, they're going to do it. And that's one of the things we want to start driving home. So these will probably be quarterly roundtable discussions. And it's an opportunity for chief diversity officers to come out, get to know one another, share best practices, because we're all in the same struggle. We might as well assist with the heavy lifting. All right, so back to today's conversation. LaTanya, I thought I would start out just by level setting a little bit with talking about what a resource is, to make sure that we're all on the same page before we start digging into the resource in employee resource groups. So with that in mind, you know, you go to Google, you go to the dictionary, you go to a number of different places. And in terms of what a resource is, there were a couple of definitions that I thought were good. And so I'm going to read them to you. One is that it's a stock or supply of money, materials, staff, and other assets that can be drawn on by a person or organization in order to function effectively. And I thought, wow, that applies to employee resource groups. This is a supply of staff, you know, that can be drawn on by the organization to help the organization function more effectively. Another definition is an action or strategy that may be adopted in adverse circumstances. DEI is under attack. We all know that. These are adverse circumstances. So a resource, and in this case, an employee resource group, is a strategy that can be adopted to help with these adverse circumstances. And then when you take it more on an educational level, the educational school system type level, they talk about at least 3 different types of resources. Natural resources, you know, gas, water, those kinds of things don't apply to us, but the other 2 do. One is human resources. And so of course, that's all of us and the people that we are collaborating with. And then there's capital. And so the money piece is one piece that I know you guys have comments on that. And so if nothing else, once we get to that part of our discussion, I'm expecting to hear from you, because one of the questions that comes up several times when we do forums like this, people always want to know about compensation for ERG leaders. So we'll talk about the capital aspect as well. But let's start out, if you would, Latanya, just give us, what is your definition of ERGs? I know you speak on them, you started them, you've led them. What comes to mind when you think of an ERG? What is it?
I hone in on the R, as you and I have discussed before, and how important they are, and a resource to the business in more ways than maybe what can be perceived. Yes, they bring about an awareness about their, you know, specific groups or what have you, but there's an opportunity to develop up and coming leaders, or leaders, you know, to take leadership to another level. They are a great partner when it comes to HR and diverse talent. Here at DFW, we have a department called Innovation, which it can be named something different at different organizations. But for here, innovation is, what new things do we want to roll out at the airport? And here we have internal employee resource groups that they can sit down and have focus groups with, or have conversations about. We're thinking about doing, you know, I'll just say prayer rooms or mothers rooms. You have the women's group, and then we have our group called LEAD, which is our Asian Pacific Islander group, that they can have those conversations with to understand and know exactly what needs to be done when they create these rooms, whether it's here at headquarters, whether it's at the airport, whether it's in your corporate office. So for me, I hone in on the R, because it's extremely important, and it taps into the entire human capital or employee cycle of a company, from me you know, the interested party, I'm a talent, I'm a potential talent, to now I'm hired, and now I'm living with you, so to speak. I like to say, now I'm in this marriage, right? And all the way up to, if I decide to leave and go somewhere else, I'm still, ERGs still play a role in that life cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. You know, we're going to first look at ERGs and how they can be a resource. And then we'll look at some of the resources that ERGs and ERG leaders need. So with that in mind, I saw on one of the slides from one of your presentations where you mentioned that ERGs are the effective vehicle for the advancement of employees, organizations, and the bottom line. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I thought that was a powerful statement, but it's packed with a lot of stuff. So just kind of pull that apart for us.
Okay, so when I say, I was reading over one of your questions that you sent, and it made me think about, we foster and cultivate the talent. ERGs can. And one of the things I just go back to me launching the mentorship program. And that it enhanced professional development and initiatives of our ERGs, and providing opportunities for one-on-one mentoring relationships with senior leaders. The goal for that was to provide these mentees direct access to successful and talented senior leaders, but it also was a way to professionally develop you as a leader. But now I can cross-reference it into my, what I call the job that I get, I get the check
Yeah.
every other week. So that's one way, and that's a way in advancing employees. But but having that mentorship program and building those professional areas that you want to build and enhance on, that's retaining. Now I'm retaining my talent, even though, yes, they're coming out of an ERG, but now I'm retaining my talent, because it is expensive for companies to bring on someone and then lose them. There's money involved in that. So we want to retain our employees. So now you have an opportunity to level up your retainment of your talent, especially your diverse talent. The other, another example, when I say, so that's from a human side, from the human capital side. Another example I want to share from a business example of how the ERGs are an effective vehicle is when I was at American Airlines. One of the programs through our abilities group is called It's Cool to Fly. And that program at a high level was around parents that have children with autism. And if you know anything about that space, noise is a trigger. And so most of those parents do not fly because it's too much, right? We are like, I get overwhelmed just going to the airport, and I work at the airport. But as a traveler, I get overwhelmed from, I got to get my ticket, I got to go through TSA, I got to go find, all of those different parts of traveling. So they do their traveling by car. Well, this program allows them to go through a travel process as though they were actually flying. So they come into the airport, they get their boarding ticket, they go through TSA, they sit at the gate, they wait, they board, everything all the way to the pilot starting up the plane, taxiing, and coming back. The only thing they don't do is take off. But the reason why I'm bringing that is because how that particular program has affected the business in a positive way is now they have new customers. Now these customers are in what they call Advantage Mile program. And now I can now possibly have potential new hires out of this. Individuals that are now maybe looking for work, looking for employment for whatever reasons, they're going to think about American and what American has done to enhance their lifestyle with their children by this program. But that all came through an ERG. So that is the business connection. So when I talk about the ERG and connecting to the business, I'm not always saying connecting to the business from it's cool to fly. I'm saying also connecting to the business from a human capital standpoint. Now, because my leaders in these groups, or even members in this group, have been afforded opportunities of professional development, mentoring programs, whatever we offer, these groups offer, whether it's through the ERG or DNI, now I have potential individuals that we can promote. Now we have individuals that we're retaining. So that does affect the bottom line. That does affect the company. So that's when I'm thinking about the effective vehicle of an ERG and how it connects to the bottom line. That's what I'm speaking about from a human capital as well as from a business.
That's amazing. I'm gonna stop you there because there are a couple of things that I want to touch on. One is, and I see we do have some things coming into the chat, but I've never heard where an ERG on dealing with abilities has specifically come up with a program for the children of employees and dealing with autism. So that in and of itself is amazing. But I'm curious, people who are on the call, let us know in the chat if your ERG that deals with differently abled people, whatever you tend to call your ERG, let us know if there's anything in there that specifically addresses autism. Because I think lots of times we think about what we need to do for the employees, and we may not be thinking, even though some of our employees may be somewhere on the autism spectrum as well, we don't always think about that. But then to go the extra mile and think about the children. So that really is connecting with the business, and not everything has to be a connection, a direct connection with capital. But clearly, if you connect with the human side of it, the capital will come.
The capital will come.
Yeah, and so much of the time, businesses are so focused on the capital, and they're not even meeting the needs of the people. So I would love to know about that. Also, you talked about the mentoring programs, and that's something that we're seeing more and more of all the time. We have developed and are in the process of continuing for another client, developing mentoring programs inside of ERGs. Mentoring programs don't have to be corporate-wide or within a division or a department. An ERG can start. So most of the ones that I've seen so far have been within the ERGs for Black African-American employees. And what that says to me on a very subliminal level is we again are confirming the fact that we don't get the same attention as other groups get. Now, I'm not playing this game of who's the more disadvantaged, group. That's not what I'm saying at all. But when you look at the data, the group that tends to be marginalized when it comes to access to leaders and leadership positions and things along those lines tends to be the African-American population, particularly African-American women, because we have to deal with racism and sexism in the workplace. And oftentimes ERGs, as we've talked about on previous webinars like this, ERGs don't always have the wherewithal to think about the intersectionality. So if I'm doing a women's ERG, whatever ethnic group I belong to tends to be the focus. And many times the women's ERGs are led by white women. That tends to be the focus, but you don't know what you don't know. So are you also incorporating other women who don't happen to fall into the same demographic as you? So let me go and see what's in the chat before we.
Okay.
All right, so someone is asking, can we get the link to the American programs? We can add it to our resources. I'll let you address that. I know you're no longer at American Airlines, but you may still have access to that information.
Yes, I have, I'm still in contact with the ERG leader that brought that vision to life, as well as one of the D&I leaders at American. So if you or Ashley, Dr. Linda, can just send me a reminder, I will make sure that I get them, get them connected about that. And what I love about it is when I was there, it was still growing, but it was still in a really good space. And we were doing it at regional airports. But since then, and I missed it, I was at another conference, but they had a cool to fly. It's a cool to fly day at DFW Airport. Wow. That's a major airport. So it stepped up, along with the fact that they have now partnered with Holly Rod Pete Foundation with this program. So not only is it for employees that may have a child with autism or a niece or a nephew or godchild, whatever that space is, but it's really for individuals outside of American Airlines as well. So they have an organization. I forget, it's been a while, but the organization that they started with, I'm sure they're still with them, but they now have, as we say, leveled up, and now they're with Holly Rod Pete.
That's good. And for those who don't know, she does have a son
that has autism.
Autism. And so she has done a lot in that arena. That's great. So I'm sure Ashley has she probably already emailed you the reminder. Because
that's okay. I'll get it. I'll get it to her.
Make sure that we get that. All right, so Dr. Zakia, has a question. Can you discuss tips on how to avoid disconnect between expectations and reality for ERG members, being as though they are operating in a voluntary capacity? Wow.
What I share with my leaders is because it's volunteer work. If you've ever worked in a nonprofit organization, or if you've ever volunteered and they say, we need 100 volunteers, you probably need to get 200 because it's a fact that you're just not going to get 100%. And that's as much as I'm passionate about it and all of you on here are passionate about it, we just won't ever get 100%. But if you do, please tell me. I think you have to make sure that you share with your members the value proposition of being a member, the value proposition of being a leader within the group. What would you gain? What can you take away and apply to your career as being a member or a leader within this group? So that's really, really important. And I will say to you, those of you that are leaders in this group, when you have created your mission, you have a vision, you have a mission, you have your charter, you've aligned with the D&I, strategy. Sometimes poll your members and see what they're needing and what they're longing for, because we can come up with a lot of different things that we want to do as a group, but that may not be tapping into what the majority of your group is asking for. And so make sure you stay connected with your members and that you are offering them the things that they are looking for. Now, everybody, you're not going to be able to do everything, but just keep in mind, what is the value proposition? One of the things that me launching that mentoring program, from CBRE, that came from after George Floyd. We had all of our groups to survey their membership. And what I found was a common, whether I've heard it verbally as a leader overseeing the groups or out of these surveys, was they wanted a mentorship. Not that we didn't have some type of mentorship program within the organization. We even had a leadership development program, but they were kind of restricted. And a lot of our group members were like, yeah, we have this, but it's really not for me, or it's hard to get in, or, it was. So I got with L&D and I said, I want to create a mentoring program specifically for members of an ERG. It will not be restricted. There'll be some requirements, but not the requirements like what we see in our other programs. No disrespect to the other programs, but I want my members to get what they have, what they're longing for and what they're wanting in order to help them in their career. And so that's
point, well, excuse me for interrupting, but to your point, those programs tend to be generic because they're trying to reach so many people. And when you try to reach everybody, many times you don't reach anybody very effectively. When you have a mentoring program inside of an ERG, you have people at different levels of success in that ERG. And so now you're having people who have made it to a certain level, reaching back and helping others. And they have a better understanding. Like I said, the ones that we've done so far have largely been for the Black African-American groups, but you've got Blacks in that group who understand how to navigate around the potholes to get to where they are. And they're able to better bring those folks along, other Blacks along, than somebody who maybe isn't even aware of all of the potholes that are out there, just waiting to have us sink down in them. So there's a lot to be said for, and again, like you said, no disrespect to the programs that are there. They're doing a great job for their constituency groups. But many times somebody who, if English is not your first language and you need to be mentored by somebody who understands that, where else are you going to find it? Except maybe, one of the clients we have, their Latinx group is called OLA. So within OLA, you're going to have people who understand what you're going through, the frustrations, and can help you. Things along those lines. We really have to do a lot more of that. I love that. And
yeah, and we did cross. Actually, they were able to create a profile, the mentor and the mentee, and if they needed, if they wanted someone, I speak Spanish. I would like to have someone that speaks Spanish as well. They can put that in their profile. But this program was a cross ERG. So each group had this program, but I didn't have to have, I'm Black, I didn't have to have someone Black. I'm a woman, I didn't have to have someone as a woman. So that was the beauty of it as well, but what happened before I left, what happened is I was hearing from the mentor saying, oh my goodness, like, this is a great relationship because I'm learning just as much as my mentee is learning.
Yeah. And those are the best kind of programs. That's why I don't like that term reverse mentoring. There's no such thing as reverse mentoring. Anyone can mentor someone else. You don't have to be more senior. You don't have to be, more experienced at work. It's just within that area. I get mentored by Ashley all the time when it comes to things like technology and social media. Not my wheelhouse, so, okay, help me understand how I need to do this. And I think there's room for both of those types of programs. I have mentors, even at my level of success, and I still have a ways to go. I haven't reached the pinnacle. I'm still climbing. But even as a business owner, I have mentors. Some of my mentors are male, some are female, some are Black, some are white. And I do that based on the relationship, but I'm cognizant of it because there are certain things that I've learned from male mentors that women are not privy to that information. They never would have been able to give me that. And the same thing with whites. Blacks can kind of tell you how to navigate the potholes. But sometimes if you get mentored by the right white individual who hasn't had to deal with with the potholes, they can lift you up to fly above them so they don't even become an issue. Why are you down here driving the car dealing with potholes? Get on my helicopter. Let me take you where you need to go. So there's
absolutely.
Let me go back to some of the things in chat. One other thing before I forget though. We talked, so when people are getting this developmental training through ERGs, it really is a form almost of free training for your career. And that's the way I want people to think about it. One of the reasons you join an ERG or become an ERG leader is because you're getting free developmental training. And that's why we also had that individual level of mentorship into our EnERGize program, because for $30 a month, where are you going to go? You're not going to school. You're not going to a seminar somewhere. For $30 a month, where are you going to get the individualized attention that you can get in a program like this? The benefits are just out there, but you have to be willing to invest in yourself even above and beyond what the company might do. So if you're in a volunteer ERG leadership position, try not to look at it like I'm doing all this work and they're not paying me. Look at it from the standpoint of what are all the benefits that you're getting by doing all this work.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, Dr. Linda, me as a manager or leader over the groups, I intentionally look for opportunities to send my leaders to, whether it's sending them or come with me.
Yes, yes.
Because, we as the leaders, I'm sure Dr. Linda, I get a lot of invites to seminars, to webinars, to conferences, and all of them are not, are not a paid thing, right? They're free. But if there is a way that I can bring my leaders to get that professional development as a leader, I'm taking them along with me. Or I'm going to say, listen, here's an opportunity if you're available, because I still have to keep in mind, this is my day job. They're volunteers. If you're available, here's an opportunity. But one thing I would like to say as well is, and what I'm working through here, because I've only been here for since December, is going forward, those individuals that take on leadership roles within the ERG, to give the information to their manager of what will be required of that individual, because I want my leaders to be set up for success.
Yes.
The burnout and all the negative that I say sometimes comes with being a leader in these groups is a lot of times they don't feel the support. But I do know when the manager of that individual is aware that LaTanya Flanoy is going to be a leader, or has been nominated or has self-nominated, however the process is for the women's group, this is what will be required. She has signed off. We need your sign off. And that sign off is that's also showing the lean in of the manager. And this sign off is coming, this is not LaTanya coming up with the requirement. This is leadership above me that is supporting me and backing me with saying to the manager, I have this leader and here are the requirements. They're going to have so many hours, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to take them from their job. I'm being mindful of it, but that's the inclusion that I am looking for as well.
Yeah, good point. All right, so there are a couple of things we're going to do in chat, and then I'm going to shift us to look at some of the needs of ERGs and ERG leaders. So one of them, and if I say anything, anyone's name or business name incorrectly, please forgive me and feel free to correct me. So we have one from Denise that says, at ATOS, we ask parents of children with disabilities to share a day in the life stories, as well as the resources they tap into. We turned these global stories, we have employees in 73 countries, into a digital publication, and it was an immediate success. That's an excellent idea. I've not heard of anyone doing that. That is awesome. Thank you, Denise, for sharing that. That is absolutely awesome. Those of you who are smart are taking notes. You're writing these things down. So now we've got two great programs we can tap into. And Sarah is saying, we have a parental benefit, and our ERGs call out this benefit as during our ERG or health equity events. Okay, so I noticed that some companies even have parental ERGs, there's an ERG for parents.
Family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those kinds of things. And that's good too, because again, they're thinking about not everything has to be directly around the demographics we tend to think about when it comes to diversity. And so they are thinking about that whole person. Some have come up with things around mindfulness or mental health, particularly after COVID. Those are all good ERGs to add to the mix, because again, they're helping with the retention, and it's a benefit. If you're going on a recruiting trip and you're able at a job fair or job expo to talk about some of these things, those potential employees, those potential candidates for those jobs, they're able to think about, wow, this is a company that, at least appears to really care about me as an individual. And that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
All right. And
Absolutely.
then Jill says, one thing I learned as a parent of an autistic child is that it qualifies as disability for FMLA or PMFLA. So PMFL, excuse me. So if my child is melting down or preventing me from working, I can use protected leave. That's great. That even educated me, Joe, and I thank you for that.
That educated me.
Yeah.
And I'm in HR.
That was really good. Thank you for sharing that. And there are more and more children that we're becoming aware of who are somewhere on the autism spectrum. So again, that's really good information. I think in the past, parents sometimes had some guilt or shame or this stigma and felt like, what did I do wrong, or what went wrong during the pregnancy? And I'm seeing a very positive shift where parents are less stigmatized. They're less afraid of stepping up and saying, I have a child who's on the spectrum. And I think that's a good thing. But the more we incorporate them and include them and embrace them and find ways to help make the experiences for them and their children better, then the more people will step up and say what they need. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Great. Andrea says, great information sharing. The organization and industry I work for lacks diversity overall. What recommendations can you offer to help gain advocacy and alliances with others who don't identify as constituents? Any recommendations are appreciated. So I will invite people who are in the audience to put some things in chat that Andrea can also benefit from. But if there's anything that comes to mind for you, LaTanya, that you want to share, then please do so.
I just attended it was a CEO chat around D&I, and honestly, it starts from the top. It starts from the top, and even though it can start from the top, they have to really be intentional And it's not a checkbox for them because that's what everybody else is doing. My counterparts, oh my goodness, I don't want to go to another meeting with CEOs and they're talking about all the great things that they're doing as a, chief executive officer in D&I. But really being intentional, and intentional means that they speak on it anytime they can speak on it. There are goals put in place and goals required when it comes to D&I. And when I say goals, I'm not speaking on just from an HR perspective, make sure you have diverse candidate slate, make sure you have diverse, interview panels. That is important. But what are you doing? What's the next level that you're doing? How involved are you with one of the groups? How involved are you in this space? One of the things that we started, and we call it, and it's just a step, but I want to pause for a minute and say, DE&I is not a race. It is a marathon. It is a journey. And everyone is in different places in this journey, in this marathon. So we have to keep that in mind. So one of the things that, we started is we called it inclusion moment. And before every meeting, and not every meeting, it's you'll kind of get a gist of what meeting. We would have an inclusion moment. And that inclusion moment was an education around DE&I, whether it was, we're going to take 15 minutes and talk about what it means when we say equity, or, we're going to talk, whatever that inclusion moment is. But what that does is that it's showing the intentionality. It's also continuing to keep it in your head and you talk about it. And what happened is it trickles into other meetings. So now at this level, I'm doing it. Now those leaders that was in that meeting, now they're going to do it in their meeting, and then so on and so on.
Yeah.
So those are things that you can do
we started something like that, introducing it to our clients back when it was just diversity. We call them diversity moments, and now the DEI moments. But that's what we told them. The same way most meetings start with, I shouldn't say most, depends on the industry you're in. In some industries, there's not a meeting that goes by where there isn't a safety moment, because
right.
safety is at the top of the food chain when it comes to importance. You can follow on a safety moment with a DEI moment, and whether it comes from the perspective of diversity, equity, or inclusion, something that keeps the fabric going. And we even took it a little bit further and created something called diversity dialogues, because we recognize that we're steeped in it. So it's easy for us to have conversation, but for other people, it may not be. So we created these dialogues. They're conversation starters where you purchase them either in 6 or a dozen. That's how we sell them in sets. And what you do is it's designed for the manager or the team leader to start a conversation, because they take some of the same principles that you've learned in the trainings that we provide, but now you can have this conversation on your team level. And so we give them the script. If there are any PowerPoint slides, they have those. If there are handouts, they have those. Everything is in the kit for whatever that topic happens to be, even to the point where we give you what the targeted responses should be for the questions that we tell you to ask. So if you don't get the answer that you think is, one of our targeted responses, you can keep the dialogue going, or at least say to your team, those were all great answers. Here's some other things to consider. And now you share with them the answers that we gave you, because until we start talking about this at all of our meetings at all levels, things won't change. One client of mine, they're major pharmaceutical company in the Midwest. They, at one point, were not even really letting employees talk about the stuff that was happening positively on DEI, because the CEO was saying, you don't walk around talking about, oh, I made my goals today. Oh, I built this object today. Oh, I did this, because it's a given as part of your job. And his mentality around DEI was, it should be a given. We're giving you everything you need. We're teaching you how to do it. When you do it, we don't want you walking around patting yourself on the back or making all kinds of postings and announcements. The public will know by the work that we do, by the innovation, by the creativity, by the fact that our employees are satisfied, morale is high. And he didn't want them walking around talking about programs and initiatives that they have. Because he was like, you know, you didn't tell anybody that you got to brush your teeth this morning. That's a part of your day-to-day activities. So don't come in here telling us what you did in the inclusion, you know, that's part of your day-to-day activities.
Right,
Okay, running short. So let me keep us moving. So
Okay.
I'm going to shift a little bit. Now, those in the audience, if you have something that you feel is a need as an ERG member or leader and you'd like it to be addressed, put that in the chat and we'll all take the responsibility of trying to give you what you need. But a couple of questions that I came up with for you. So some of these things we have covered in some ways, but in your experience, I'll put this in a two-parter. What are some of the needs that ERG leaders have, and what are some of the resources that DFW is providing for your ERG leaders? You know, when they are in need, whatever that might be. You know, we talked about, someone asked the question about the disconnect between, you know, expectation and reality. We know that most ERG leaders across the country are not compensated. Some might feel like that's, you know, something that they need. But what are some of the resources that you have in place at DFW Airport to help with ERG leaders?
I am building the resources, but for sure, there's an organization called ERG Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
You can find them on LinkedIn.
You know, it's funny. I just talked to Alyssa yesterday, who's the leader, and she mentioned your name as well. And so I told her that we were doing this presentation today, and that the leader of, you know, DEI at the airport was coming. She's like, oh yeah, I know Latanya. I was like, yep, that's exactly who it is. So.
Yes, she's that, and they are specific to ERGs. That's all they, you know, that's a good resource. Diversity Inc. is another good resource that we are using. And then it's because I'm in a different industry, I'm still kind of learning what resources I can use. Another resource that's good for an ERG, if you have abilities or disabilities group, is Disability In. That is a really good external resource. Now, these resources cost, so I don't know what people's budgets are, but you can still. And I use LinkedIn because there are diversity organizations that are out there on LinkedIn that provide free information and resources to you as a leader, as well as just around D&I. Yeah. But those are the resources that we're using right now.
And so, and thank you for that. There are lots of good ones out there. And I would say tap into as many as you can. Don't feel like because you belong to one, you can't belong to another. Now, again, as Latanya mentioned, some of them have price tags and some of them are significant, you know, like Diversity Inc. doesn't do a lot of free stuff, and they got a pretty hefty price tag associated with them because they only do corporate level memberships. But honestly, that was the major impetus behind EnERGize. I have been in the field of DEI for over 20 years, over 25 years. And so those of you who know me and have been following me know that it was the topic of my doctoral dissertation. I've worked internally in a number of different places as a practitioner, but most of my career has been self-employed, business owner, that type of thing. But I say that to say that as I go in and out of different organizations, some of what we've noticed is there has not been enough attention given to ERG leaders and their development. And in order to get the development, your whole company has to buy in at several $1,000s, and depending on the size of your organization, it can be $100,000 or more to be a member of some of those organizations. So we're small but growing, but that's why we started 2.5 years ago doing these free webinars. That's why we started just this year our membership, to try to make it so that if your organization is not ready to pay thousands of dollars, are you ready to elevate yourself by paying for an individual membership at just $30 out of pocket, those kinds of things. So sometimes you have to, you have to crawl before you walk before you run. Organization may not be ready, but there are things you can do. And certainly anytime you hear about a free webinar being given by any organization, take it.
Yes, oh my God.
I still go to
That's
them.
what I did.
Now, again, with all of the years and experience and education in the area, sometimes I have to weed out. I'm able to discern what's good information from what isn't. That comes with time, but at least you are getting good nuggets and you know to take in the good, throw away the bad. So
Right.
that is something that I think is really important. Some people are putting information in the chat, and I think that's great. I do believe that this EnERGize organization becomes sort of your tribe. If you don't have a lot of support where you work, keep coming back here to the webinars, meeting people, putting your information in and making those individual contacts. That's part of what we're doing. At some point, we may have to start charging for webinars and things along those lines. We're not there yet, but at least get in the door where you can and start while we're still, in this place of growing, and it's free and it's all kinds of good information out there. There's something else. Oh, that was somebody telling me about having to drop. Great discussion.
I saw a question. I think it's Latoya Fields.
Yeah,
are there a few steps?
We can answer it, but I'll have to email her because she had to drop. So go ahead, say her question.
No, it was just asking around a few simple steps to follow when you're starting an ERG for the first time. How much funding on average is appropriate to start? That's just, as far as funding is concerned, that is going to be based on the organization and what they want to give. I do have a toolkit that I use. I know ERG Alliance does too, but hers is not.
We do too, and ours does not cost what ERG Alliance costs.
Yeah, and I have one that doesn't cost.
We give it to you at no cost. So let me just put that out there. We give you our starter success kit, which gives you everything that covers, templates, how to come up with your charter, your mission, your vision. How do you align with the business goals? How do you find executive sponsorship? I mean, we walk you through every step and every phase of what it is that you need to do, even to the point of how do you measure effectiveness. And because we do an annual ERG Summit and Award ceremony, we even give you opportunity to win an award. We gave away 3 awards last year. Was our first time doing it. We gave away 3 awards, one for the most improved ERG, one for the ERG with the most creative events, and one for the ERG that had the most community impact. So yeah, there are a lot of huge organizations out there that can help, but the cost of their help is huge as well. When you can find some of their stuff online free, by all means do it. We have some stuff that you can look to, but again, just keep in mind that everybody has some kind of starter kit. You just find an organization that you like and that you want to work with. And if you find more than one, great, pull from all of them. But yeah, we'll definitely make sure we get back to Latoya on that because there are some things that you can do, and it doesn't even require fund. It doesn't cost anything to start an ERG. You don't have to have funding to get started. You don't have to have funding to have meetings and to do events. You just have to have a good plan and know what you're doing. You need to have the support of your organization. I have seen grassroots ERGs start, and then they come back in and get the support. The organization sees what they're doing and the results, and then they get behind them. So part of it is you have to know your culture. Is your culture one where you definitely need permission, or is it one where you can ask for forgiveness if you start this without their permission? You just have to know the culture. So there's so many things. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are at time. It's 12:59. If there's anything else that you want to put in, I know, again, you mentioned Disability In. We've had speakers from many of the organizations that you've mentioned come and speak here. Disability In, Darla Wilkerson was one of our good speakers who came. And so just a number of people who have come in and supported this. I want to go back real quick to showing you who's going to be with us next time. Well, here, if you got value from this and you enjoyed it, please, this is how we get business. The way we're able to offer these to you for free is because we have paying clients who are paying us to do other things. So we need for this to grow. It benefits us, it benefits you. Please do a Google review. There's the QR code that was created for that. And last but not least, next month, we're going to hear from CJ Casuto. CJ spoke for us once before and got very good reviews. She's a project manager at Central Square Technologies, and she's going to be speaking on the role of reinforcement in building successful ERGs. So we are trying to stay on top of things that are important and helpful to you. If you have a specific need or there's a topic you want to hear about, please let us know. You can always reach out to Ashley. And if you yourself would like to be a speaker, because again, we try to bring in the practitioners who are out there as opposed to those of us who are the consultants. So you're out there doing the work. If you feel you have something you'd like to share, please let us know and we'll see about making you a speaker as well. So I'm going to thank you first, LaTanya, but then give you the closing comments to wrap it all up for us. So it has been an absolute pleasure. This is the beginning of our relationship. I just need you to know that you're not getting rid of me. And so we will be communicating and staying in touch. I thank you for giving up your time today to pour into people who trust Turning Point Leadership Group enough to sign up for our webinars and things. So thank you so much. And what would you like to say to our guests before we're done?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. I want everyone to know I am very, very passionate about EnERGize, and because I know the value that they bring. And you as leaders, I know it can be tiring, but you're doing a fabulous and important work. And the companies that you are within doing this work, they need you. And use Turning Point as your place of your safe space, to say, I'm tired, help me in this tired space, or I'm stuck. My brain is foggy, but so use Turning Point as your safe space as leaders. The other thing is always remember your value proposition to you as a leader, to your other leaders that are working alongside with you, and most importantly, to your members. And when you really live to that value proposition and become that value partner with the organization, a lot of this, you'll look back and think, man, I was so tired, but oh my goodness, it has changed. So always keep in mind the value proposition and why you're doing the work that you're doing.
Great, thank you. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing. So don't forget, go out, give us a review, spread the word, invite more people, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.